Hello, everyone. It is Sophia Parola here with Garden State Film Festival. We are in our 23rd season. We are back in the OG spot, Asbury Park and Cranford, New Jersey this year, March 27th through March 30th. You can see some of the amazing films we have this year. And one of the films you can check out is a short film called Confession. Here to talk to me about this film is the director, writer. He did music, camera op, editor, and producer, probably much more. He's going to talk about it. Here with me is Daniel Culiani. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm super excited because, as we talked about before, this is actually our first filmmaker interview of this season. So, congratulations on getting accepted and being the first to talk with us.
Thank you so much.
So, first, before we get into it, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Confession?
Yeah, so I'm from Pittsburgh, and with I would always watch movies and TV shows, and I would do stop motion on my iPod, and that's really how I got the love for filmmaking, just because I would see all the films and I would go, I know I don't have the people and the money to do all this, but I really want to do it. So I would just use my toys, and I brought all of that love into Confession, and I'm really happy to see that it was accepted for all the people that worked on it too, because they brought the love that they had for filmmaking.
Wow. So you started off with, like, I think one of the hardest and longest things, like stop motion. I feel like that is so tedious and time consuming.
It also, yeah, it is like that, but I think especially at a young age, it
Uh-huh.
taught you to really care about how you place the shots, how everything looks, because you have to take the time and line it all
Mhm.
up to build just one scene. And so it was a really great little training as a kid for
Mhm.
what would be happening.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to definitely discuss all of that because one of my questions is about the shots. It seems like you took a lot
Yeah.
of time with the shots when it came to this, and that explains it. You care a lot about the shots. But before we even get into that, let's tell everyone who's watching, what is Confession about? What's a little blurb about the film?
Confession is about a young man who goes to confession, and he starts to confess about something that gets weirder and weirder as you watch it, because you start to see, oh, this person isn't just confessing something that an everyday person would confess. They're confessing about something much more deeper and much more terrifying. And you see, or you hear at least from the priest who's listening to the confession, that it breaks even a priest who's probably heard every single thing in the world that you could think of. And the one person comes in that you think is unassuming, and then it's a lot more crazier than it seems to
Mhm.
be.
So, as you talk about it, one person, it's
Yeah.
really just, we don't want to give anything away, but there's not a whole ensemble, right? And there's not a
Mhm.
lot of locations. It really is specific. What was the inspiration? You don't need to give too much away because we
Yeah.
want people to still come see the film, but like, what was some of the inspiration? You talked about, doing stop motion and really caring about the shots. What were some of the other inspirations that inspired you to tell this story and then how you told the story?
When I started writing this, because I wrote it a couple of years ago when I was a junior or senior in film school, and around that time, First Reformed came out with Ethan Hawke. It was a Paul Schrader
Mhm.
movie where he played a priest, and I saw that, and I got really into Paul Schrader. And in my mind, I kept having the little vision of seeing Ethan Hawke as a priest and thinking about church and everything like that. And then I came up with the little premise of someone that goes into confession, and it's something a lot more deeper that they're confessing, but the priest who hears it, as the rule for confessions, it's only between the two people and God. The priest
Mhm.
isn't allowed to say one thing or another to anyone else. And so I thought, ooh, well, what if I make the confession something that's more twisted? And so I took the First Reform inspiration and just went a little bit further with it. And I loved the image of seeing the confession and the two people in it and seeing the little box that has the divider between the
Mhm,
two people. And that's why I loved making it in that setting, because it frames everything.
mhm.
I thought it was beautiful.
I love that question. It's such an easy question. What was the inspiration? But it's really cool to hear all these specificities and what inspired you from them. I love that. So, and you talked a little bit about these shots and the inspiration
Mhm.
behind them, that divider. Talk to me about the cast and crew first, because I'm going to ask you those questions. But you have a very strong lead actor here, and you were the camera op. So, who else was a part of this crew? How did you find this actor? Tell me about getting that together.
So I had, again, I made this film since I wrote it in film school. I ended up making it with everyone from film school because my roommate all throughout college was also a film major. And so that's something we bonded over. And so I brought him onto it, and I said he wasn't really interested in doing any other position other than being a producer. And I was like, perfect. I need a producer to go out and find all these places. But also, what he did was he found the kid, Liam Gannon, who is the main character. And when I saw him just with his hair and he had a perfect look. And I was like, all right,
Yeah, and you used that word unassuming before. It really that's how important casting is. I agree with you.
yeah. And so I
Yeah.
was like, you have the look. I don't really, we don't need to do anything other than just take you on for the film because you make the whole film. And so we did it that way. And then we brought in, because I want dolly shots
Mhm.
for everything, because I'm very inspired by David Fincher, Christopher Nolan, and they all use dolly. And we didn't have the money for dolly. It was low budget,
Mhm.
everything. And so the church that we filmed in, when we had to get for some of the tracking shots and everything, some of the dolly shots, I was like, well, let's go around and look to see if we have a wheelchair or something like that. So the camera or the dolly operator, Corolla, she was also friends of ours in film school. She was the one that was doing all the dolly operating, pushing me around and everything like that. And so it was a really small crew of just a bunch of people. Like, people would be holding a light while they're doing holding a boom and everything. So people were
Wow.
doing multiple things, and that's why I love the group that I had from film school. And then on the actor side of it, you have Liam Gannon, who's just perfect. And it was really for one of my first films to be making, to have a kid who I thought, okay, it's not going to be, I'm going to have to work a lot with him. But when I got on set with him, I was going, explaining things. He was like, I get it. And I saw immediately he pulled into something, and he was a perfect person. He got into a place. And then Kurt Shaw, who plays the priest, we also, my producer, his name's Ken, who found Liam, he also found Kurt. And Kurt, even though he's not seeing on film except the first scene, if you saw him more, he has a great look too, because he has a cool beard. It's gray and he especially looked great in the priest suit and everything. And so we had a great crew and cast and everything. And everyone pitched in to do multiple things,
Mm.
especially as you know from seeing the crew list and everything. People did
Yeah.
multiple roles.
I love that. True indie filmmaking and, being innovative with a low budget. That's what we
Mhm.
love, what I love to see in film. Speaking of people who were like did multiple roles, we talked about it. You were director, writer, producer, you did music, you were the camera op. You just said someone was wheeling you while you were holding the camera. You also edited this. What was it like for you to wear all of these hats? Was there any you love in particular? Any that was hard?
It was not terrifying. I'm terrified. I'm setting up a new short film, and I'm terrified about that, about pulling it off because everyone's so talented around me. But for this, even though everyone was talented around me, I wasn't fearful just because it was one of the first films I was making. And so you're ignorant to all of, like, because you don't know what can happen. And so you're
Yeah.
just all of it, anything can happen. And so I was like, okay. I'm musical and I play instruments and everything. And I got real inspiration from Hans Zimmer and Johnny Greenwood, who compose Paul Thomas Anderson films, and the way that they go about deconstructing all of making a score, and that you don't really need to be a musical person as long as you feel something with music and you feel something with sounds, you can build a score. And so I took inspiration from that, and I was like, that really empowers someone who's not a true musician to still be able to make music in a different type of way, just building sounds, because that's music as well. And it was proven that they could do it, so it is a thing. And so that empowered me a lot. And then going on to, like, I'm a director and a writer, so that was nailed down and everything. But then going on to editing, again, composing, but also camera operating, that all was, I knew it had to get done because you have to do that to make the film, and I wanted to make the whole film. And so I was like, well, now I have to learn all of these different things. I'm so happy that I've learned all of them because now I can do them. And when I bring people on to do
Mhm.
those different roles, I now know their language. I know what they're dealing with and what they need and what they don't need. So I can be able to talk to them and really hone in so that everyone can do the best work.
I love that. Love that so much, especially what you just said. Like, I act and I like to direct and stuff, but knowing, even if you're not a master, just knowing a little bit, learning, that's beautiful. I love, this is such an inspiring talk. Thank you, Daniel. We're running out of like the last 3 minutes, but there's a couple questions I want to ask you. First, this, well, we talked a little bit about sound. I just want to shout out to you real quick about that because that's something that really stood out. And I know that that was specific for you. Another thing that stood out are these shots, like the perspective of them. And you talked about how you did stop motion, so you really care about the composition. Talk to me about coming up with the shot list. Was this something you did in pre-production, when really, really meticulous, or was it kind of something you went with the flow with? What was it like creating these shots?
Because I love watching these type of interviews with all different filmmakers, and so I would watch Steven Spielberg interviews, and he would always talk about how he doesn't storyboard. And so
Mm.
growing up the whole time, I was like, all right, I'm gonna let my imagination do the thing, and I'll be on set figuring everything out. And then you start to learn that's not how it's done, especially if you want to be able to make a film. You can't just walk on and go, I don't have it planned.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up, because film school, they really nail in, make sure you do everything that you're supposed to do. And then you can be able to break the rules, be the Steven Spielberg who's like, I'm not doing storyboards. And so I had to do storyboards. And so that's where I got the love for actually design. Instead of just having the design in my head, I can go deeper into it. And then I can see that informs the writing process because you end up rewriting the film as you storyboard because you go, ooh, that's a cool shot. Ooh, I know this will be cool because one, I also know the actor, I know his look, and I can design around his look and make it look cool. And so that's why you get a lot of close-ups because his whole face, his whole hair, it's so cool to see. So why not get those nice close-ups? And especially with the confession, it frames everything so you can really get in there.
I
Yeah.
like how the actor inspired shots. I feel like I don't hear that very often. Usually the shot list, or maybe it's all at the same time, but that's really cool that his look kind of inspired how you wanted to film
Yeah.
it. So that's really interesting. So I definitely want to talk about how you are, this isn't your first rodeo with Garden State Film Festival. You
Yeah.
volunteered with us before. Talk to me about how it feels to have your film. You said the first film that you've really made and directed at Garden State Film Festival, a festival that you know. So, what do you love about this festival, and how does it feel having Confession premiere this year?
Well, being there the last 2 years, and one of them only being there as a volunteer, you get to meet all of the people that are at the festival. You get to meet all of the great filmmakers. I met you the first time, and I saw what a wonderful person and talented person you were. So I was like, all right, the festival has to be perfect because it draws people like yourself who are that amazing. So I go, all right, the festival has to be perfect. And so I want to stay here because it gets those people. And I was like, hopefully I can be one of those people. And then it turns out that way, where and it is because of everyone who helped to make the film, everyone on the cast and crew, that it got here. And I'm happy that it got into a festival that is as perfect and as beautiful, because it brings in filmmakers who are talented and brings in film lovers to see those films. So I'm happy that this film is in there for both of those reasons.
I love it. And it's just so, I mean, thank you for those words and what you said. And I love this festival for a lot of the same reasons. The people it attracts, the people that work there, the films and the film lovers. And it's all levels, all stories. Like it's just nothing's in a box. And I'm so happy that Confession is here this year. I am honored to have interviewed you. Thank you for being the first interview this season for me. And congratulations. I can't wait to see you this year at the festival again.
Thank you so much.
Let me tell everyone watching how you can watch Confession. It will be at the Berkeley Hotel and the Continental Room, March 30th from 3 to 45 p.m. That is the film block. Definitely check it out. Oh, yes, there it is. Sunday, March 30th. It's probably easier than how I just said it. So, Daniel, thank you again. Congratulations. And we will see you all at the festival. Visit gsff.org for your tickets. We'll see you guys there.